Hello, welcome back to Women in Africa. Today we have a special panel made of special women in honor of International Women's Day. Today we're gonna talk about the topic of embrace equity, and I hope that you will enjoy what we have to share. My name is Dr. Jess. I am the hostess of the platform, the Postcard Women in Africa, and I enjoy inviting amazing women on my platform to talk about topics that relate to women and Africa. So today we have special guests, like I said earlier, and I would like to start by briefly allowing them to introduce themselves. We're gonna start with, of course, Queen Sheba. Hi, Queen Sheba.
Good morning. Good morning. Happy to be here. Thank you all. And I'm very excited to this meeting and very excited to meet the new people here I have not met. My name is Queen Sheba Cisse. I live and work in Senegal as well as USA. I'm the founder of Queen Sheba Village, empowerment to resource tool for women, girls, youth, and orphans in Senegal.
Yes, and then as some of you may already know, we have Queen Sheba on our platform in previous recordings, and next will be Miss Samantha Sibanda from Zimbabwe. Hi, Miss Sibanda. I hope I said that correctly. Sorry. Or Miss Samantha, how you doing? She's a disability rights activist or advocate. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm from Zimbabwe, and my name is Samantha Sibanda. I work in the disability rights space. I think it's now for 10 years now. And yeah, I'm enjoying the work as we advocate for the rights of people with disability. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. And then next we have Dr. Mma. Thank you, Dr. Mma. The floor is yours. You are in Nigeria and you're a lecturer, you teach philosophy. Welcome to our platform today.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to be in your midst. I'm Dr. Mma Ukaulor, a philosophy lecturer at Imo State University, Owerri, Nigeria. I'm also a researcher interested in gender and women issues. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Mma. Thank you, Ms. Sibanda and Queen Sheba. So we'd like to start writing and just ask, of course, it's a panel, roundtable, but let's start by briefly saying how would you define equity and what does equity mean to you? Who want to start?
I go first. Did everybody hear me? I'll go first.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. What is equity for me? Equity means to me that we involve acceptance of everyone, regardless of their social economic status, regardless of where they come from. And the whole thing about equity is to gather forces and resources to be able to help people regardless of their status and to reach their full potential. Without the economic resources and education, equity means nothing. So we have to make sure we involve everyone and accept their differences in the management and help them with the task to advance themselves.
Yes. Well said, Queen Sheba, if I understand. Dr. Mma, will you keep your phone stable or your device because it's making a lot of noise in the background, please?
Okay, thank you.
All right. So So as Queen Sheba say, equity, it's making sure everyone has access to resources. And that's very important, of course. Do you have anything you want to add on that, Miss Samantha? What's equity for you? How will you define it? I don't think she can hear me. What about you, Dr. Ma?
Okay, for me, equity has to do with giving each member of any given organization or society opportunity and resources, not based on sex, but based on the circumstances. In other words, when we talk about equity, we talk about the fundamental human rights of the person. When we realize that the person has what we call voluntas and ratio, that's the person has volition as a person, he or she has the right to do certain things. And when you deny the person her rights, it goes contrary to nature, thereby demeaning the nature of the person. And when we talk about equity, we also bring about the concept of recognition, because one has to also recognize that the woman, for example, is a person. And when there is recognition, then we talk about fairness. Hence, there will be equity and balance in the society. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much too. Miss Samantha, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I don't know if you heard me earlier, but we have Queen Sheba and we have Dr. Ma. We talk about what equity means to them, and clearly they all agree that it's about making sure everybody has access to resources regardless of background. Is there anything you want to add to that or to emphasize on?
Yes, and I think I agree with what all the women have said basically, because I feel that we must understand that equity is not like the final result. Equity is a process that we need to take if we want to get to equality. And I do agree that we must see that people have got different backgrounds. They are different people. You know, a married woman, an unmarried woman, a woman who goes to work, a woman who doesn't go to work, someone with kids and someone without kids. So there are a lot of things that differentiate us, and we can't have the same things being offered to the same people. So I think that equity really teaches us to look at those differences, to look at those intersectionalities that we have in our population. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so we can go as even as women, we have different backgrounds of the age, the marital status, as Miss Samantha say. So that lead me to actually ask to anyone would like to answer to that. How do you embrace equity in your everyday life? Because it also, for me, I think before we go to a bigger platform, the world and the continent and African women, do you think that you consciously apply, you embrace equity? If yes, how you go about it? I mean, even if it's as small as, I don't know, handling in your professional life, in your family.
Jody.
Okay, Dr. Jess?
Yes.
Can I speak?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. We're talking about equity in our everyday life, like in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an example?
Yes, sure.
Okay. We would try to understand and promote the importance of equity in the workplace by communicating the targets of equity and practices. The equity practices are, for us, how I use that is we are a volunteering organization, an international volunteering organization. And what we do is we try to promote diversity in these practices. We try to we're not paid, but we have incentives as a as an equity of a priority. So basically, what we seek to do in equity in our practices, we try to educate what equity really is from a human being standpoint. And it's difficult to talk about equity without equality, because equity and equality work hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
So the promotion of equity in the workplace as a priority of wages, if you are employed or if you're a volunteered participant, we try to include the diversity in the equity, and we hope to integrate that with equality in our everyday practices in the workplace.
Yeah. So in your organization, you make sure that this important is to talk about equity and equality. You make sure that how you treat or how you interact with others. What do you mean by a little more like clear? Is it with volunteer themselves, or how volunteer treat the project or people that are working on the ground?
For us as an organization, how we treat our volunteers as how we become our volunteers. And when our volunteers volunteer with us, they learn the importance of what they're teaching to others, including them in their equity practices, because we recruit volunteers internationally, globally. That's a diversity standpoint. And at the same time, when our volunteers get involved with what we're doing, our events, our programs, our projects, they also come from a humanitarian standpoint to promote not only the equity practices, but treating each other fairly, and treating the participants, our beneficiaries, more so. As we're talking about equity, it's more of a behavior. Because you can talk equity, but if your behavior standpoints are not for the people, by the people, and to the people, to benefit the people, and what you're doing, that speaks a lot, because equity is more, and equality is more than just saying these two words. It's all about including the people that you're working with, showing them fair practices, showing them love, showing them concern, educating them what equity is, and it's not about the resources, economic resources, because if you don't have economic resources, and first of all, education, economic resources, all of this, it doesn't go too far, because of the fact that especially for us, the people we serve are impoverished. The communities are impoverished. So you have to go from a standpoint of care, love, concern, and then which is education and the behavior practice of showing the people who you are and what they mean to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That sounds good. So it's important to us, like you say, we have a specific example. I heard you talking about fairness, care. It's more than just a keyword for you and your organization and your volunteer.
Absolutely.
And so, Dr. Mma, you're a lecturer, and then you also probably have many other hats. How do you apply equity in your everyday life? Dr. Mma? All right. Miss Samantha, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. So I just wanted to add on the fact that, when we talk about equity, we want to really consider what everybody else is going through. So in my workplace, we really consider what kind of people are being called maybe to.
Yeah, I can hear you now. I wasn't hearing. Hello.
What funds we are giving to people. So, for example, if we want to give loans to different women, we also consider that the women are of diverse backgrounds. There are some women who are not educated, and they might need help with filling up like the form that we need to use for the loan form. So those women would need extra help. And I also have kids. And if the other kid is not doing so well, it doesn't mean that all of them need the extra lessons, like if I want them to pass. There is one that I'll say, okay, you really need more extra time with your teacher. And I need to pay like for an extra fee so that they get to the pass rate that I require. So this is generally what we say. What another person needs is not basically what the next person would need. So I think that if we do people-centered things, even in the classroom itself, we need to check what is the situation of the child. Of course, we may expect people to be maybe at school by 8. There is another child who uses a wheelchair, who doesn't have self-care skills. We can adjust the time and say, okay, by 8:30, you must be there. You see, so these are the things that we need to consider. Like I said, that equity is a process for us to get to equality. And we must consider all these diversities of the people so that we can put them, or they can reach a certain level that is equal. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Miss Samantha. So when you mentioned the loans for women, is it something you do with your organization specifically or at work?
Yes. So what the government does, the government of Zimbabwe has got what we call the Women's Bank, and they also have youth banks. And then through the national budget, they also give out some loans. So for what my organization does is we see that the people with disabilities and other women may not have that information. There are other women who can go through the internet. The internet prices are now high, and the person with a disability who's not employed, who's not educated, they might not be able to find those opportunities. So we convene meetings, we open WhatsApp groups so that we get people informed. They must know where how to get the loans, how to get them easily. So my organization does a lot of groundwork when it comes to sharing information. We do all the work on the internet and just to other people who may not. We also do checking so that people are not lost when they go to civil services and all that. So I guess what we do as a day-to-day job is to make sure that citizens are aware of what's going on. They are aware of what kind of funding are available, whether it's from the government, from the banks. So we share all these opportunities. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Samantha. So in your, what we understand is in your field, you definitely make sure women get the support they need so they can have, you assist them in a way that help them to reach the need they need to have, because everybody has different background. And Dr. Ma, in your everyday life, how do you apply or embrace equity?
Okay. When we talk about equity is all about treatment. Hence, the beginning of all points at the family. This is to say that the family is the starting point of all kind of information and treatment, as well as knowledge. Any type of knowledge you get begins from the family. So in trying to be inclusivistic, the family should also try to divide or share household chores equally. A boy should be taught, if it means how to wash plates, he should not be taught, a washing plate should not only be for the girls. So when a boy from the family knows that he should do a particular thing, and also the girl should also do particular things, then when they go outside their families, they will know how to perform their various roles, as be it as a man or a woman. Okay. Then the next point is also centered on reorientation. Okay. Most of us have the wrong information. We have the wrong orientation. Hence, reorientation will play a major role as regards being inclusivistic, that is being equitable. Then in the society also, when it comes to business, in the business sector, when it comes to salary allocation, we should also look at the way salary is being allocated. Let it not be because this person is a woman or this person is a man. Even as a lecturer, when it comes to when I teach them, even when I grade them, I shouldn't consider because of the sex of this person, because of the location of this person, where this person is coming from. So all these factors will help in order to bring a society that is equitable. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So do you mean that as a lecturer in your family, I mean, I want you to be more like about you. Do you actually, what do you do specifically? You mentioned grading, for example, your student, taking account the background. So what specifically are you doing or not doing to embrace equity as an individual?
Okay, let me more boys and one girl. So I have started from the onset to teach the boys that there is no role for a boy or a girl. They all do equal things in the house. I teach the boy, they all wash plates, sweep their house, their rooms, and the rest of them. So there is no disparity. There is no partiality as regards the sexes. So also, I also take that to my class, to the lecture hall, okay? When it comes to who becomes the course rep and all that, it shouldn't be based on sex. It should be based on accountability. It should be based on responsibility and so on.
Okay, well, that was certainly a good example of how, like, everyone share how we can make sure in our everyday life we apply equity, because like I said earlier, sometimes terms seem so big, important, but we can apply in our nonprofit, in our professional life. Now I would like to ask the panelists, what will be the biggest, in your opinion, what will be the biggest hurdle for equity for African women? So do you have any, well, what I want to say by that is, when you think of African women, when you think of how the condition of African women right now, what keep African women, I guess, from reaching, because of course when we think of African women, we have to think of African men, but in your humble opinion, based on what your personal experience and your work experience, what keep African women from having that equity, achieving equity in the work, in the everyday life as well? I hope it's clear, but if not, I can explain. Who want to start? Queen Sheba? Go ahead. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. I think the biggest problem for African women on the continent, the motherland, of course, is education. Having a resource. I don't know what's wrong with my camera.
Yes, I'm not sure why you are shaking a little bit.
I don't know why.
Enough, and stop the video and restart a little bit.
Okay, stop video.
It looks like it start. Okay, let's restart.
Okay, and start.
Okay, there you go. Go ahead.
Okay, I think the biggest hurdle for African women is to be able to provide the education to them, and the education is lacking. Number one, first and foremost, education is not free.
Yes.
If the income is not there, there's no education. Because education leads to resources. Resources lead to opportunity. Opportunity leads to creativity. So first and foremost, you have to tackle the fact that we are talking about the majority of our African women on the continent. They do not have the money for good education. That's the first hurdle. And it's a domino effect to the fact that the resources are not given to them, because everything is about, unfortunately, it's about the status of who you are. Do you have education? And if you don't have the education, then your opportunities are very limited. So we can get education available to them, whether it's volunteering education, especially for leaders who know the the situation, and they do know it because we live in Africa, we work in Africa, we're an African people, so we know what the situation is, and to provide some type of government funding, grant funding, pro bono work to educate the women, or at least get the education. Of course, it's not free. Get the educational fees down so they can be able to get some type of resources to be able to afford the education, because education is resources. Resources is opportunity. Opportunities it involves also creativity. So that's is the income of seeking education and being able to participate and be a beneficiary of education.
Mm-hmm. Well said, Queen Sheba. You say education lead to resource opportunities, and that's something that this cycle, not getting the education for African women, really prevent them from reaching their full potential. So when you talk about education, what will be, in your opinion, the ideal, I would say, level of education when when you think of that? So for people to understand, is it high school? Is it college? Is it, getting a job training? What do you have?
Yes, I would say job training. I would say workshop training. But at the same time, we have to think about and know and accept the fact that a lot of our women have not been to school. A lot of our women have never been to school, especially in rural, remote areas. There is no such thing as they have not even attended what we call here in the United States prerequisites to elementary school. Then you go to middle school. Then you graduate to high school. It's nothing to be ashamed of, to the fact that they're impoverished and born in poverty, and never had the chance or opportunity to go any further than being a mother, wife, cooking, cleaning, the daily house chores, and the things of this nature in the villages. So we would have to start from ground scratch one of where they are, and literacy. Cannot even read. Of course they can speak their indigenous languages, but outside the indigenous languages, nothing happens after that. So we would have to start like in an elementary type of way to educate them. And another thing too, a lot of our women and on the continent don't even know of any type of basic human rights, that they have the right to be educated.
Yes.
You have the right to be educated. And what does education mean? So you have to even define what the definition of what education means. Because that word, they might not have ever heard of the word educated. What does education mean? So we would have to go from A all the way to Z, and we would have to evaluate where they are and start there to get them on the road to achieving equality in education, and that they deserve the basic human right to be able to be educated. And also this too involves their country. What are their country basic human rights? Because every country, of course, on the continent is different. So we would have to know what their laws are, what the governing laws are, And if that doesn't work, guess what? We're going to make up our own to educate them. We're not going to wait for the president, the leaders, the people telling us about who, when, what, We're not going to do that. And we're just going to move forward with what we think is best to advance them. Oh, it's about advancement. It's about empowering them. And once, our women are empowered, because if there's no support system, there's a big discouragement. Okay? There's a big discouragement. So I like to use my own opportunity of my own self as a role model to be able to be there for them, to know that they have support. Because without the encouragement, the support, the self-esteem, it's very hard to be talking about education, equity, resources, and all of these other type of things. So we have to start from zero.
From zero. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like you say, after that, because if someone cannot read and write, I don't know, in this age, it's so hard to even start anywhere. Of course, like, and I like how you honor that they speak the languages, but it's not enough in these days to have access to opportunities and resources. You need a little more than that, because of how the world is set up. Thank you for sharing that, King Sheba. And I'm gonna ask Miss Samantha, would you like to share your viewpoint on what are in your opinion, the biggest hurdle, or one or two, to equality to African women?
I think sometimes what's making us not to, understand or be equal is also intolerance. We don't tolerate each other very well. Uh, there are standards that people place.
Mm-hmm.
I think I borrow from what the previous speaker was talking about. If maybe it's a job, they'll say you have to have a license, you have to have a degree of some sort. So it means that if you don't have all those things, you're already disqualified. And there are places where, like I said, I work in the disability sector. You can't even go through, it's inaccessible. So which means that you're already disqualified from the workforce. We don't tolerate that there are people, we don't tolerate each other very well. There are people who are, who need more adjustments. Once this person deviates from the normal, or even in the classroom language, we start, panicking and making it a problem. We don't adjust so that we can, centralize our solutions on the person. Okay, we've got this form that people need to fill. What can we do? I like what the Women's Bank in my country is doing. They just ask you, what is your idea? And then they've got professionals who then go to the ground and help you to fill in that form or do whatever. We also have something which is called the Freedom of Information Act in Zimbabwe. And if you're trying to ask for information and you can't speak in English, they'll just say, okay, give us what your request is in any language. So we've got 16 official languages. Let's tolerate each other. We are not all going to be good in English. We are not all going to be early for whatever we're doing. There are people who need help when they get dressed, or when they, there are people whose minds who need extra or other accommodations so that we can, attend the same event, for example. So if we want to try to have equity, we must centralize, tolerate each other, tolerate that this is the way this person wants to be. I saw people being trolled for their dressing. You get trolled for being different, trolled for being, aggressive as a woman. You get trolled for, so many things. We are just not a tolerant society anymore. Feeling for each other as well, to say, okay, if we say, let's run this race, will everybody be able to do that? And what accommodations are needed for us to get to that goal? We need to tolerate each other. We need to find a common ground and see what adjustments need to be made, for example, for another person. Yeah.
Yes, well said. As you point out, the diversity we already have on the African continent, regionally. I say West Africa. You can keep your camera on. West Africa, Central Africa, Southern Africa. So, I want to ask you another question about what you say. And then you mentioned Zimbabwe, you say 16 languages you have. Okay. So that, and in Cameroon is like 200 and plus. So not everyone can be fluent in English, like you say. And I heard you talking about accommodation, not only the level of education, but also just even knowledge about different things. So you, in your organization, what is it the biggest hurdle you have met so far, or like people not be able to express, be fluent in the English language? Is it the biggest one, or there are more?
Yes, actually, I work with deaf people as well, and sign language is not English.
Yes.
Sign language is really a language on its own. And people don't get that the vocabulary of sign language is different from the vocabulary of English. And they think that if they put maybe subtitles, for example, a person who's deaf can understand whatever they're saying. And then they say, we've got the captions, we don't need the sign language. No, we need the sign language because that's the person's language, right? So these are small things that I've seen of people not being considerate in a certain environment. I've also seen the stuff about accessibility. You get to a place, there are stairs, and they've organized the meeting upstairs. The person with the wheelchair can't go there. Or they say, okay, we'll give every woman maybe let's say $20,000. Obviously, the other person would need translation, they would need accessibility to get where they want to go. So we've actually asked some of the funders if they could take into consideration that disabled persons organizations have got, needs for accommodations. And if a meeting has to have like 20 people, it means that we're actually maybe inviting 10 because others would be maybe people who are coming with them for assistance, like the assistant in the meeting. So if we want 20 people, it means that maybe we have to double the money or something like that, so that it can be equal. Obviously, that person who needs an assistant to attend, somebody who push their wheelchair, someone who type for them, that's a personal assistant and they need them for the meeting as an accommodation. So we can't say 10 people, or we can't say those who are accompanying people, please stay behind. It's now being intolerant. It's now being, unreasonable, because for them to fully participate, they need that assistant to be there. So we have had to talk about such things, such adjustments, and asking all the other organizations to try and follow suit and say, okay, if you need people with disabilities, be prepared to say they can come with an extra person. And that's an accommodation that they would need.
Yes, that's the least we can do. And accommodation, disability, hopefully we're going to talk about it, you and I, in another recording, what that means and how does that look like, because there's so many, it's such a wide spectrum. Thank you for sharing. Dr. Mma, do you have anything you'd like to add to what we shared so far? About
okay. Yes, in addition, yes. In addition to what the second speaker said, okay, there is a term I call feminine hostility. Is one of the major factors, apart from education. Feminine hostility is one of the factors affecting both women empowerment, women development, and anything that concerns women.
Will you repeat that for me?
Feminine hostility.
How you call that?
I said, apart from feminine hostility.
Feminine
hostility. Yes.
I never heard that
factor. Okay, it states that women have this hostile behavior or attitude towards themselves. So apart from education, just like the first speaker said, the major factor affecting women is feminine hostility. They do not want to support and accommodate themselves.
Okay.
Take for example, in an office. In my office, I am the only female there. If also there's another department where you see two women in the midst of men, you will see them, they will not cooperate with themselves. Rather, they see themselves as enemies, okay? But you see the men cooperating with one another. So in this feminine hostility, then if women are hostile to themselves, then why talk about empowerment? Why talk about equity and equality? Thank you. Then the second one is self-awareness. Most women are not aware of themselves. They don't know who they are, okay? Now, when we talk about education is one of the factors affecting women. Now, in Nigeria, for example, some of the women or the girls are getting the basic education. Even some of them in the higher institution. When you see some of them and ask them, who are you? What do you actually want? Okay, some of them don't even know who they are. They don't even know what they want. They don't even know why they are in school. They just want to marry, okay? And that factor is affecting us, okay? Then the next point is early marriage. Early marriage, we see women, some girls are pushed into early marriage, don't even know what they are. They have not even achieved anything in life. You just push them into early marriage. From there, they keep giving birth to so many children. For short, from there, their destinies are paralyzed, okay? So these are some of the factors. Then we can also consider gender-based violence. Gender-based violence is another hurdle women face. That this is one of the factors that affect equity in our society. The woman is seen as a thing, an object that you can treat anyhow you want. Okay, so this factor, as well as sexism, these are factors that affect equity in our society. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ma. I would like to stay with you on that. Just to recap, you mentioned feminine hostility, lack of self-awareness, early marriage, early marriage, gender-based violence, which are some important issue I look forward to discuss with you as well in future episodes. So it's a lot, a lot of hurdles, isn't it? What would be for you the hurdle if you have to choose one?
Well, the major hurdle for me is just feminine hostility.
Oh, because if I hear you, you think that, I mean, I don't want to put word in your mouth, but it sounds like feminine hostility, which is still, for me, honest, I never heard of it, but I know what you mean, because you are saying we women will be better off generally caring for each other, especially if we are the minority group, especially on the continent. What do you, and I don't want, briefly speaking, we still have one or two questions. I don't want to go further than that, but is there any reason why this feminine hostility take place in our society, in Nigeria, across the continent? And I will say, I think Miss Samantha, she said, I agree. I saw her, she said, I agree. What do you think that exists, briefly speaking? And just explain just briefly.
Okay, I should explain about feminine hostility?
No, I think, please tell us why you think it exists, because if women seems to struggle, because that's what I heard, African women seems to struggle to support each other, but thank God that many of us who are not supporting each other. That's why we are here today. Let's make that clear. We have a panel, we talk about African women. So, but there's still that existing and feminine hostility. Why do we have that, in your opinion?
Okay, I would think that feminine hostility, to me, some women believe that they should always be at the second position. And this is as a result of orientation they got from maybe their mothers or their parents or the society. Okay, so they will believe that they will always keep being maybe at the bottom level or the second position, that any woman who comes out better, they see the person as an enemy. Okay, let me take, for example, there was a time a woman contested for the governorship election position in Imo State. So immediately she came out, you see women, they kept on antagonizing her, calling her all sorts of names. And at the end of the day, she could not even win the primaries, okay? So this feminine hostility is a daily concern, something that happens on a daily basis, okay? I also had another encounter, okay? Some of my students, I met a boy and a girl course reps, and the other lady was already assuming that she's already the assistant, okay? So when the first guy was no longer interested in becoming the course rep and now wanted the girl to continue, and you saw her fellow girls, they all stood against her. Even that day I came to the lecture hall to teach, and one of them stood that why should she be a course rep? And that thing caused a big problem amongst them, okay? So these factors, this is more of a psychological thing, okay? Women need to there should be reorientation, just like an unknown philosopher says that the 21st century illiterate will not be one who cannot read and write, but one who refuses to learn, unlearn, and relearn. So it's high time women began to relearn and also unlearn certain things that they have learned. Okay, and this factor is actually affecting the development, empowerment of women.
All right. Well, I learned something new today for sure. You know, I didn't know there was like a term for it, and I would love to even talk to you off screen more. So it's kind of a nice circle because we have Queen Sheba who talk about education, and then I think there's an overlap with Miss Samantha on the need for tolerance in society. I think that goes in the same idea. So now that we talk about the hurdle, the problem that we may face on the continent for African women, I would like to go back to Queen Sheba and ask her what will be, in her opinion, some of the solution to either what the problem one of the panelists mentioned, or maybe what if she talk about education, what would be some of the solutions she would suggest to make sure we have equity for African women on the continent and the diaspora, of course.
Okay. Yes. From listening to what Dr. Stella was saying,
Yes.
I have not heard of the term, but I do agree wholeheartedly on what she has experienced and said. And I think a lot of it goes back to education and definitely generations from before, how your mother was seen and treated. And then because once we are downgraded or devalued, we carry this over to our children, and it goes on and on and on. So, like I said, I never heard of the term, but definitely I understand exactly what is going on. Unless we educate ourselves and our children, and we're talking about females too, that's what we're talking about first and foremost, we will never get the acceptance of ourselves to be able to have this self-esteem, this support of ourselves, because before you can empower anyone, you have to empower yourself. You have to motivate yourself. If you can't empower yourself, then you can't even go forward either. So where does it all come from? I think it's based on eras of maybe traditional cultures, patriarchal systems of the woman is not first in the society, she's second, walk behind me, not in front of me, not even beside me, type of mentalities. So all this stems from what she's talking about. Basically, educate your children, your girls, and definitely teach your boys, because this is what we're not saying the blame game, where this is coming from traditional time frames. We know that we must educate our boys, our male children, as equally as our female children, because if not, that would be a waste. Our women are queens, our girls are princesses. They're going to be queens, and they should be, and they are born this way. So if we're not teaching this and empowering and motivating and being example role models of this, where are we going? Because once you're educated and motivated and your self-motivation, because you cannot depend all the time on someone to motivate you. You have to dig from this perseverance from within. This is us, because sometimes your parents are not there, your friends are not there that day. They're doing their own thing. They're on their own world. They're on their own journey, their own path. So you're left alone. You're left alone between you and God, the God source, the higher power. Call it what you will. You have to come forth and keep your faith in yourself, to motivate yourself to move forward in life, and which is not, it's easier said than done. But what I want to say is a lot of this nonsense it's unfortunate, and it's still going on, especially for our women in Africa. I see it and I work around it all the time, and that won't be tolerated in Queen Sheba Village arena, because it's no place for it, and we can't even move forward to what we are teaching if we can continue with that. But it's a mindset of things, of mentalities that has to be taken care of, and it's entrenched. It's an entrenched beliefs. It's entrenched beliefs, and to get rid of entrenched belief, we're talking about not even hundreds of years. We're talking about thousands of years of nonsense. So we have to be aware of that. Ooh, my camera again. So thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you for suggesting that. Miss Samantha, do you want to come in and let us know what would be the solution to bringing equity on the African continent and for African women or the diaspora? Because there are many African women, not just on the African continent, like I am here in Queen Sheba. Miss Samantha?
Yeah, so I just want to add that, if we are to embrace equity,
Yes,
we need to really be open-minded. We must be open-minded. We must also know that things are evolving. There's not even one thing that is constant at the moment. There are things that evolve. And, we've got this thing in my culture about Ubuntu. I don't know how I can put it, but it's knowing that for you to be a person, you need other people. And so it means that we're an interdependent society. And if we are to embrace that equity, we must have that Ubuntu spirit within us to know that somebody depends on me, and I must also play my role in the society. I must also be a supporter of other people. And to do that, I must have empathy. I must be in a position to place myself in their shoes and listen to them. What I've seen people doing is that they do remedies. They give us remedies and they don't even know who we are. They come with the solution. They've never listened to me. They've never listened to my story. And I think that is so problematic, not to embrace the person's background, not to embrace their culture, not to embrace who they are first before you even, try to make things right in whatever programming that you're trying to do. So I believe that we must embrace that we are not the same. We must embrace the diversity of people so that we can, achieve equity.
Equity. Well said. Dr. Ma, how do you think we can come about bringing equity for African women? Dr. Ma, are you there?
Sure. Okay. So just like the first speaker said, education. Okay, so we have to consider when we educate both the male and the female in the society, then when we are educating them too, we have to consider who is educating them. What kind of information are we giving to them? And so on. Okay, so for that first, I agree with her. Then secondly, we know that there are three sectors or three sets of people that have...
Sorry, Dr. Ma, for some reason is your camera on?
Sure, it's on.
Okay, maybe it's on my end. I don't know why I don't see you. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Can you see me now? Okay, I said secondly.
Go ahead, yes.
Okay, I said secondly, there are three sets of people or three instruments that affect the society and gender equity. We have the parents, we have the teacher, and now the church. So I want to concentrate on the church. The church has the religious institution, has a big role to play when it comes to achieving gender equity in the society. Okay, because
I
no matter.
I think your video is still off. So, yeah, try to maybe turn off and turn on again. We want to see your beautiful face. Let's try that. Yeah, it went.
Okay, can you see me now?
No, it went completely black. That's strange.
Uh-oh.
That's strange.
Okay.
All right. Okay, well, go ahead. It's okay. Go. We're just gonna have to do like that. But for some reason, your video doesn't show on my end. So you were saying that the church.
Okay.
And Miss Samantha, you can turn your video on too if you want. It's okay. The church is responsible. Yeah.
Yes, the religious institution has a big role to play because the religious institution, both the church, the mosque, about life. So for us to achieve gender equity in the society, the church has some amendments and also information to give. Secondly, culture. As we all know, culture has to do with life that are not so good, are kind of obnoxious. So we have to also, the society, we all have to look into these practices that are not favorable to the women folk. And when we embrace that, we can then think of achieving equity in the society. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ma. Is your phone like on something dark or black? Is it down?
No.
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 Okay. All right. Well, thank you for sharing. I don't know what happened on your end, but I would love to see your beautiful face again. Well, I think we definitely have shared a lot today and a lot to think about. Thank you, Dr. Ma, for just making those suggestions. Miss Samantha, thank you for coming today and sharing your thoughts. Of course, Queen Sheba, we come from different backgrounds. We want to invite everyone to embrace equity wherever you are, maybe in Senegal, in the US, in Zimbabwe, Nigeria, Cameroon. And then together, we also want to wish Happy International Day to all women around the world. Would you like to wish Happy International Day, anyone, in your own words? Yay! So yeah, so we're gonna, let me take also a photo at some point. I'm gonna unmute everybody. So yeah, Happy International Day. Oh, there she's back, Dr. Ma. Dr. Ma is back.
Oh, thank you.
There you go. So we're gonna say Happy International Day, embrace equity, and wherever you are, do your part in making sure that women definitely are in a position where they can have access to education resources. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us today for this panel dedicated to the International Women and the International Women's Day. All right. So have a wonderful International Women's Day wherever you are.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Dr. Jess. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jess. Thank you, ladies.